5:30, so we'll call to order. It's 5:30 with my microphone on this time. So we'll call to order this meeting for Monday, December 6th. Carl, would you start us off with a roll call, please?
Councilmember O'Neill.
Present.
Remley.
Present.
Lunsman.
Present.
Reif.
Present.
Johnson.
Present.
Excuse me. I saw him there. Reinbold.
Present.
Langer.
Present.
Rux.
Present.
Mayor Schoeneman.
Present. Please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. First order of business will be to approve this week's agenda as printed and distributed last week. I don't know of any changes to the agenda. Has anyone got anything? Then I would take a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion from Councilman Rux and a second from Councilman Reinbold. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay. Motion does carry. Next, we've got the approval of last meeting's minutes, which took place on November 22nd. Can I get a motion to approve those minutes?
Moved. Second.
Motion from Councilman Johnson and a second from Councilman Lunsman. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay. Motion does carry. We've got one speaker for the open forum. Did you sign up back there, Jay? You were thinking about it? So I'll give you a couple of minutes to lay out your thoughts on what you've got for us here. So this isn't really a time for us to respond. It's more or less a time for a citizen to tell us what they've got on their mind with that. Jay Gelhaus, esteemed attorney in town here. What have you got?
I understand the city's going to consider a new precedent today dealing with TIF number 35. And I guess I'm just in the process right now of working on my 11th TIF within the city. And up until now, the city has established procedures and parameters of what they will allow TIF funds to be used for. And those TIF funds are essentially, up until now, have been, except for the 3 historical buildings, the last 15 years, it's only been allowed for infrastructure expenses that are at some point going to be dedicated back to the city. Sewer, water, curb gutter, asphalt, base course, that type of thing. I think it's important going forward that myself, along with other developers and other attorneys that do these TIFs, to have some parameters and at least a roadmap of what the city will and will not allow. And I know at this point we've had that roadmap, and I think for the most part it's been pretty successful. With this TIF 35, a portion of those funds are going to be used for the developer on his own property that he will own and have. And so I guess I'm just, wanting to know kind of the lay of the land of what the council is intending, where we go from here. And, I'm not suggesting that we are on a slippery slope if this passes. I'm just wondering, are we going to be able to allow developers to use TIF funds for other properties or other purposes on their properties? And I guess it's more of a question, and maybe we kind of have to determine the lay of the land as we go. But up until this point, I think we've been pretty successful with our TIFs. And with that, I'd welcome comments, or you can just move on. And
I think given the nature of our open forum is primarily a one-way street, Jay, but I do definitely appreciate your input on the topic as a person that's been involved in a lot of these things, and you're welcome to stick around for the meeting and see how the discussion goes. I have 4 items of consent calendar, which are routine city business. We've got petitions, we've got licenses and lottery notices and so forth. I would take a motion to approve those 4 items.
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion from Councilman Remley and a second from Councilman Lunsman. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay. Motion does carry. First order of old business will be the possible second reading and final adoption of ordinance 211102, which sets up salaries and wages of city officials and employees for this upcoming year. Joe, anything new?
Thank you, Mayor. No, this is the same that was brought to you, no changes.
All right.
Move approval.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Rux and a second from Councilman Johnson. Anyone have anything to add before we make this thing official? All right, then we would, Carl, would you give us a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Ronayne,
Aye.
Remley,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Wright,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Rux,
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next item of business for old business is the possible approval of Resolution 211102R, which creates a tax increment financing district labeled number 35, Dakota Estates TIF, to reconstruct a multifamily apartment complex and future residential development. This was a tabled item from our meeting from November 22nd, and Joe, city manager, will start off this conversation. What have you got, Joe?
Yes, thank you. This was, as you stated, tabled, and staff was asked to discuss with the developers, firm this up a little bit. There were some questions in it, and as the public comment, it's a little bit different than what has been asked of the city before. But I wanted to highlight a couple of things from our discussion with the developers that I think is important. One, this is a little bit different than a typical residential TIF. Most of our typical residential TIFs have been for infrastructure that didn't exist and was necessary for the development to go in. A street in front of a house that's going to be built. This one's a little unique in that the primary street is there. If you weren't building a multi-unit building, we wouldn't have made them put in this side street, so to speak. But the density was a concern, adding that many units. So this is not something that the developer has to have to be able to develop their land. This is a little bit different. We are requiring this as part of the development, as part of the variances and the zoning requirements. This was a staff recommendation, and that was accepted through there. The second thing is, again, this is multifamily, so it counts as commercial property. A little bit different than most of our TIFs. There have been a few, but not very many. And with that, it's called the discretionary formula. I call it, graduated tax abatement is the term I'm more familiar with. But the developers would be able to recoup or really have a savings in their taxes for the first few years. But once you're creating a TIF, that goes away. They don't have that because there's no taxes to pay. They've got to pay their taxes for the TIF to work. They cancel each other out. So that's a little bit different. It is also different that there would then leave an amount that's not related to the TIF, not related to the discretionary formula that essentially would allow them to invest back into their property, but that's not $775,000 or so what we've thought about. When you look at the difference between the discretionary formula and the TIF, it's about $225,000. So rather than 1.55, it would be 1.32. So I just wanted to point those two things out. I know some of you have had some questions about that it is a little different, but it's not a lot different.
Councilman Ronayne.
Yeah, could I just ask you a question, Joe? If we reject this and instead they do the discretionary graduated tax thing, can we obligate them to put in this other road?
I would say no. I would say we almost obligate ourselves to put in this other road because it will. I think it will cause some problems up there on an already stressed street. It will open up some opportunities for some future street realignment and some alternatives. I think we would want to figure out how to put that street in, but I do think the burden would kind of come back to us.
The one thing that you had made mention of, that as a item of distinction from this TIF from previous ones was you said that the roads on those others didn't exist but were necessary. In speaking to the city engineer and others, it seems like this road kind of is necessary.
It is, but it's not. It's necessary because of what they're doing. It's not necessarily to do what they need to. Like for example, if you look at the neighborhoods behind it that were TIF, the residential neighborhoods, could they have built 50 or so houses in there if those streets weren't put in first? This one, the street is put in first. It's just the overall development and how it affects those other properties that kind of come into play.
Councilman Wright?
Joe, I just have a clarifying question here. You talked about the numbers. I'm looking at the overview in our packet, and it talks about the 1.55 million and the first 833,267 install a water main loop and all that. This says the remaining 722,000 will finance project costs incurred for the construction of the units, including parking lots and site and foundation work. Is that accurate?
I think it is. That's the number, but that's again where you talk about that because it's a commercial zoned development, it would qualify for a tax abatement, which would be about 500,000. So when I come up with the number of about 225, that's a very general, not highly calculated estimate.
So one conversation that I had today, if that's, kind of the compromise that people are feeling towards, I said, why not allow them to do the discretionary formula as well as provide the TIF for so what would the difference be there? In your mind, is it a wash, would be the same either way, or why would you roll the project costs into the TIF itself, whereas that's going to set the precedent for future development?
I just think overall, the discretionary fund means they don't have to pay as many taxes over a period of time, which means the revenue wouldn't be there to pay for the TIF. So they kind of cancel each other out for those first few years.
But it would essentially be a wash though, right? The 500,000 that those guys would graduate up to would eventually be put in their pocket one way or the other.
Potentially, yeah.
No, it would be because they're paying taxes
It's just
now,
that
or they're paying taxes
the
after
TIFs. So the TIF's not going to. I think the difference would be an interest cost because they're not going to have as much money up front to pay back the TIF. So that would go farther out.
Clint, what have you got? Councilman Rocks.
And I don't think if they just wanted to say, hey, we're going to take the increment to put in the road to make our residents happier and all this. I think where some of us are stuck is the additional money, where that isn't going for the public infrastructure itself. And that is probably what is different about this is basically it's a $700 and some thousand to put in the parking lots, the foundation, and all this other stuff. And like I say, about a month and a half ago, we rejected one who wanted to have a TIF to basically do the dirt work for a commercial type property. And at the same point, if we sat there and said, hey, we're only going to let you TIF for the road, you're only talking 800 and some thousand. So you're cutting the TIF in half. Like I say, they're just a lot of moving parts. So if you allow them to get the discretionary formula, but you only allow them to TIF for the road, it is a wash in a way, but I don't think it would really affect the payout. But again, it would be totally different than what we've done before in the past. Normally when we want the TIF, we want to capture all the increment right off the bat. So we make them waive the discretionary formula, except for the depot where the people had already applied for the discretionary formula. But it wasn't the developer's property. So like I say, to me, this is one of those things where, would the road be nice? You bet, and if it was any other commercial development, they would have to go in and put the road. Lamont's have to go put in a road whenever they do a strip mall, and we don't TIF that. And this is a similar type of thing. Yes, it's housing, but it is commercial property. So for me, this would be setting a new precedent if we approve this TIF. And part of me thinks, is it just better to say, we're just not going to do the TIF, go get the discretionary formula, we'll work out another way for the road. some other way. And I think there are options that we can do. But it's one of those where, going forward, it's just going to set a terrible precedent that now people who do commercial real estate or even commercial properties can come in and say, well, I'm putting in a road, so I need TIF, but since I can't take the discretionary formula, please give me, extra in my TIF. And it's not all our money. I mean, it is money the county's not going to get, the money the school district is not going to get, James River Water. So these types of developments can, like I say, provide some help to those entities for when we do those residential TIFs that we basically for 10 to 20 years, they don't get any increased taxes on.
Councilman Johnson?
Yeah, and I agree with Clint's thinking and reasoning there. I think there is a danger of establishing a pivot point here. I think if we went this route exactly as presented, that there will be a lot of asks in the future, and the water could become a little muddier. There's infinite variety of requests that could come to us for to consider this or that situation more commercial related, and so I'm concerned. I would rather back up and have, if necessary, the city take care of that street at some future point.
So, Robin, part of the conversation that we had was about the value of that city or that street that would be constructed. Do you think that $830,000, it sounded like, was pretty much in line with the rate that we would be charged or anybody would be charged if they were to do that city street with the...
It's not only the street. You're going to have water, sewer, stormwater, things that would take place as part of that. You can't put the street down without the utilities being underneath it. That won't work. Otherwise, you're going to tear it back up later if you're doing any further development. So the rest of the utilities also need to be put in as part of this, and that's part of that. Or that cost, the 800 and some thousand, is all the utilities and all the street. I think that would be the full and true cost, estimated cost, if we were to do it ourselves, or if we were to hire to have it done. I don't think we'd get it done any cheaper.
I'm sorry, but what is the cost of that road?
As far, it's the asphalt, it's the preparation, it's those normal things. I don't have the breakout, whether you're talking $250,000 for the pavement and $100,000 for curb and gutter. I don't have that in front of me.
And that's kind of what I'm asking. Is that significantly? I mean, is the additional monies they would get under this TIF as proposed significantly more than what they would get? Well, than the infrastructure plus the road? Are they getting significantly more than that? I didn't think so.
No, it's the same general.
We have it all together as infrastructure. It's not split out as far as the road and the utilities, but that 833,000 and some change.
Yeah, I think I see your points about Alan and Clint about setting a precedent, but this is unusual. I mean, this is not one that has come before us again or previously. We haven't had somebody as part of their project building a road that they're not otherwise obligated to build. It seems to me that they're bringing additional value. This is housing, and we do need housing. And if this isn't going to get built without the TIF, I'm here as one who would support it. We need the housing, and if this is what it takes to get it built, I'm willing to support this.
Can I say something as well? Sorry.
Go ahead, Councilwoman Langer.
I have a hard time with the concept of setting a precedence on this. I think that's part of the problem, is that with every single thing we do as a city, it's, oh, well, this is what we've always done before, and we can't change the sign ordinance or accept this because somebody would be upset because before they didn't do it. And same with the landscape ordinance. And I feel like it's this vicious circle of, well, this is what we've always done. So if we do anything new, it's going to be the end of the world. So I agree. I mean, we need more housing. I'd like to hope that if we put something like this up, then maybe people will sell their house and move into that. And then we create more housing. And I think overall the city and the people who do the work behind these do a great job vetting them. And I I think it sounds good. I totally respect and understand what everybody's thinking, but the concept of setting a precedence and this is what we've always done and it's all black and white, I think sometimes there needs to be a little gray, and we need to, as a council, take a look at what are going to be the benefits for the city as a whole and the county. So I'm going to support this.
Thank you, Tiffany. We've got one question for statement from Councilman Reif.
I think the part that gives me a little, I don't know, heartburn would be a way to put it, is the fact that the phrase finance project costs. And as soon as we start financing project costs, I just don't know where that door gets closed. I would bet we would have a line around the block if people knew that we were going to start financing project costs. So I'm going to oppose it because I don't think project costs should be included in the TIF. And that's just the easiest way I can say it.
Councilman Rocks.
Dave put his hand up. He hasn't spoken.
Oh, sorry. Councilman Lunsman, sorry.
Actually, I agree with that. That's my heartburn with this. It's not about the street itself, and in fact, I'd love to be able to see that street go in, but I have a really hard time putting this type of money into a parking lot and to the cost of the project itself. That's where I have an issue with it, with this particular TIF. I get it, and I think the housing is needed, and I agree with that. But once we start using this money for project costs, I think we do open a door that we can't swing shut again. And I think that's a big deal for the city, for the citizens, for the, right now we could probably handle it economically, but eventually, where does that drain us? Where does that drain the county? Where does that drain the school district? And I'm not willing to open that door right now. I really am not. So I'm not going to support this.
Councilman Rocks.
And going to Robert Ain's point, yes, we do need housing. This would be the first apartment building of this type to be granted a TIF. The ones over by KOLE, the ones up north, unless they were involved in some bigger development. The ones down in Happy were involved in a bigger development where the increment was captured. If they were sitting here and saying, we're doing not just this road, we're opening this up to develop future housing, et cetera, this would be a no-brainer for me. It's like, okay, you're providing a public benefit. Here they're doing a road that provides some public benefit, but they reap a public benefit as well. Absolutely. And this would be the first one where that has happened. And where basically they have come and they're going to basically get their foundations, their parking lot, and all this other stuff put in at the taxpayer expense. Yes, it's their increment, but this is funded by not us capturing those higher taxes over a period of time. And like I say, it's to me, this is no different than a strip mall. This is no different than any other commercial type development where we've stayed away from this due to the fact that this affects the county more, this affects the school district more as far as what goes on real taxes than what the residential housing does over a period of time.
Councilman Ronayne.
If I could, I can count noses and I know where this goes, but we may as well have a vote, so I'm going to move that we approve this.
And to Joe's point, before taking a quick second on that, you were kind of suggesting that an amendment be made to cover a lower than full amount of the TIF. That was kind of your thought process on the deal.
Well, I think the concern is and I don't know that, quite frankly, hearing what I'm hearing, that I don't know that we get there. The difference is we're trying to talk about, I think, how we do residential TIFs, considering this is not that. So I think the best thing is moving forward is if they were allowed to get their discretionary formula, which means they weren't penalized for having any TIF, then we need to find out how to put the street in, and that may be by doing our own TIF. But I don't think we can saddle the developers with that.
Yeah, and I think that, it was about a year ago that a local family with local builders came and they got a TIF for a 55-plus neighborhood, and they didn't get any project costs, and they forewent their discretionary formula. So, I mean, my conundrum with the whole thing is, fair is fair, and, you got to be consistent. But I also think that, to your point, if this road, you're saying the road was necessary for that development, it feels less necessary for this development. Maybe it's not their problem. At the end of the day, I can see why we'd want to make it their problem, because it becomes something that we don't have to directly deal with. But in terms of moving forward to where everybody that builds anything wants a TIF funding for their project itself, I think that Mr. Gelhaus made a good point. You know, he's got people lined up for TIFs for project costs that will be having to pick winners and losers on a consistent basis from here on forward. It's not unusual for us to build roads that are necessary for new communities.
Travis?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm
I was
sorry.
gonna
And
say,
are you Mr. Stencil?
Yep.
Take it.
Nate Stencil Group. Thank you for letting me present this evening. I guess I would just like to point out a few items. I guess is the fact that we develop in a lot of different communities, and allocating any portion of TIF proceeds to improvement of property is extremely normal in a lot of communities across, well, mostly Minnesota and South Dakota too. So it's not that unreasonable for a developer to ask it. And the biggest portion we're asking for here is back to this discretionary. We're asked to put in a road. We're putting in a road. We think the road's necessary. It's great. However, we do miss out on that discretionary, which in this case, conservatively, is about $500,000 in property tax savings that we would recognize every year for the first 5 years through that step-up period. So, the extra request for the roughly $722,000 really is not unreasonable. As far as the district and all the money going towards the TIF, that is not completely true. We do have other parts of this development that'll happen because of this road that'll contribute to the tax basis in that area to the tune of at least $65,000 a year. Plus, with the annual property tax increases over the life of the district, there will be a significant amount of tax that's created in this district that the city is currently not getting. Today, this is basically zoned ag. We pay very little tax on this. So pretty much from year one, the city will recognize more property tax revenue than they get today. Plus, I think the added benefit of getting the road in, if it's us or the city, I think it'll spur a lot of economic activity in that area that is not happening currently, which is going to increase the tax base more and more. There are many other points, or a few other points that I made in my memo to the city. But the reality is that, approval of the tax or the TIF for the road, the public infrastructure would be great, but it would not allow us to move forward with these projects. And so we just wouldn't be able to do that, which would be really bad for the city. I think I know there's a huge need for this. It allows for push-up people to move into these units, allows for people to backfill into housing and create new housing throughout the whole city. Overall, when we talk about the foundations and the roads the property costs in the parking lot and the foundations and such, we got $27 million worth of projects going in the area if we can get this approved. So the 722 is probably, I guess, it's more than what we would offset our discretionary by about $222,000, which is really, not too significant. But it's just it's a tough position to be in, and to be this far and be able to move forward with these projects, and then all of a sudden have it die in the 11th hour here. And I don't mean that in kind of a forceful way, but the fact of the matter is the projects just don't work without the TIF. And we're just trying to figure out a way to move forward. And it's not fair to really be penalized for the road with the discretionary portion of this. But I truly do feel that once this road gets in, the continued development happens up there, the city is going to recognize far more property tax revenue than they are today, and they'll start realizing it right away. So if anyone has any questions for me, more than happy to answer them.
So Nate, the $65,000 that you had made mention of initially in your statement was primarily your expected tax base increase for this property.
Not for this property. That would be additional units that'll be built on this property. There are roughly about 20 additional row homes that would be created here on top of these two projects that will pay tax. They are not part of the TIF.
Are they on the same property?
No, they're kind of, I guess, on the whole property we own, but just off to the sides. So we are going to do additional development that are outside of this immediate, I guess, district encompassing these two properties.
So I guess part of the discussion that we had is, so let's say we don't require you to do the road.
Mm-hmm.
Let you take your discretionary formula. You still say this project would not happen?
I don't know how that looks. I guess in my head, I'm used to TIFs we've done, they pay in tax, and that's the way a TIF district works. So I didn't run the numbers the other way. I'd have to look at that. I don't think I'm not saying it isn't viable, but it's definitely has some challenges to get it done. There's just a lot of variables in the market today.
And that's different from your other properties, just basically due to, let's say, construction costs, timing, because you built the ones over by KOLE.
Well, I mean, you look at just pure cost today. I mean, I don't even remember, but let's just say if the whole building by KOLE back then was, I don't even know, $4 million, $5 million. I mean, for the whole development, interest cost, land, everything. Today, to do 72 units, it's $102,000 a door just for the construction. So just that time, well, and I'll just give you an example. The 72 unit building we built, Dakota Estates 2, I believe it was probably contracted in 2017. Total development cost for that project was $7.2 million. Just the construction for the same building today is $7.2 million. So it's very costly to do these projects compared to what they used to be. And, thank God there's a little bit of a rent increase happening in the market, but it's frankly still not enough to really make the deals work, especially when you have added cost. So,
Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Stencil?
Rob had a motion.
Which appears to have died for lack of a second.
Second.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Nate. So we've got a motion on the approval of the resolution from Councilman Ronayne and a second from Councilman Remley. And with that, Carl, would you go ahead and give us a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Rux,
No.
Langer,
Aye.
Reinbold,
No.
Johnson,
No.
Wright,
No.
Lunsman,
No.
Remley,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Mayor Shauneman.
No. Motion is defeated. Sorry, gentlemen. Hopefully you can meet back up with us and we can discuss options with that road and see where we stand with that discretionary formula. Too difficult of a thing to sell to our existing developers that have done really similar things. Move along to our new business where we've got the discussion of final redistricting plan of the redistricting commission before it is deemed adopted on the 21st day. And with that, we've got Ron Weger, our city's attorney. Ron, what can you tell us about that?
Thank you, Mayor Shauneman. I have invited the redistricting commission members, and we have present Josh Van Laken, the chairperson of the commission. Former Councilman Bunceness and Troy Mcqueen are all here. We're on that commission. And they did submit, along with the other two members of the commission, a final redistricting plan for this council to adopt one of two ways. One would be to affirmatively tonight approve and adopt the final redistricting plan, or to do nothing, take no action, and to let it become deemed adopted on December 9th, 2021 of this week. The third option, if there were any members of the council that had an issue with the redistricting plan, the council could return the plan to the redistricting commission with its objections, and then have to list the objections of those individual council members. This process, as the council has been made aware of through the minutes of the commission, through the the proposed redistricting plan, involved a movement, a shift of the boundaries essentially to the east to come up with a little better parity between the northeast and northwest districts, and then the southeast and the southwest districts. And it is this the city attorney's recommendation that you either approve the plan tonight or take no action and let it be adopted organically by the charter provision. And if there's any questions of myself or of any of the commission members, you're certainly welcome to ask those.
Yeah, and I might ask Josh, why don't you take a moment and just kind of tell us about how the process went, and you know, most of us kind of watched from afar, felt like it was pretty well under control, but give us the bird's eye view.
Sure. Thank you for the invitation to speak. So our charter section 6.03 required this deciannual redistricting, and the first thing that we had looked at was making sure that there was nothing in terms of violating knowingly or unknowingly, as is often the case, the Voting Rights Act of 1965. There wasn't. Aside from those considerations, the committee did not have access to any other demographic or voting registration data. It was purely population based. There's a couple of different things that we were tasked with doing, and unfortunately it was mathematically impossible not to divide precinct lines. We did have to divide 2 precinct lines. We talked with the county auditor and got her blessing. And as Mr. Wager had said, the population had grown in the east, so both of those lines shifted eastward. There was additional considerations about, do we base it on projected population increases or increases now? So there was some debate as to whether we moved those lines farther east, and ultimately we stuck with our original plan. No public comment or anything like that when we had held that back in November. But fairly straightforward process, and fortunately not nearly as contentious as maybe the gerrymandering accusations at the state and national level.
So Josh, it looks, if I had to say, it looks similar but cleaner than the lines that were there before. So nice work as far as that's concerned. It looks like it might be a little easier to digest.
Sure.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
So with that, I've got a motion from Councilman Renee and a second from Councilman Rux. Any other questions for Josh?
Thanks for your time on that.
Yeah, nice,
everybody.
nice work.
Good job.
Very much.
Everyone on the committee. And with that, Carl, would you give us a roll call?
Councilmember Ronayne,
Aye.
Remley,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Reif,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Rux,
Aye.
Mayor Schoeneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Thank you all for joining us. And Dave, I didn't see you come in, so hello.
If I might say one thing, I'd just like to quickly thank Mr. Wager and Jeremiah, I forget his last name, but the geographical information systems made this process quite a bit easier than it might have been if not for that. So thank you.
Nice work, Ron. Jeremiah, if you're watching. We'll move along to our possible approval to opt in to a proposed settlement of the national class action lawsuit by governmental entities against opioid distributors and a manufacturer. And City Attorney Ron will weigh in on that, given its legal nature. Ron, what can you tell us about this lawsuit?
Again, thank you, Mayor. As the director of the Center for Complex Litigation for the city, we are in a position of accepting or authorizing our city manager to move forward with opting into this national opioids settlement. I would like to tell the council that there's been a lot of positive momentum on this case, but that wouldn't necessarily be true. There was a recent, I believe, California jury verdict that did not actually go in favor of the distributors and manufacturers. So the national opioid settlement is actually well-timed and might be a very good outcome for the local governments that are involved in this national litigation. For those of you who aren't aware, obviously there's been for this last several years an acceptance that there is an opioid crisis within the country. And I've asked our chief of police to be here. He's president, and he would be willing to answer any questions that you may have regarding impact locally of the opioid crisis. But at the end of the day, what we have is a proposed opportunity to opt into a national settlement. I think the total dollars that might be coming to the state of South Dakota through this settlement will be in the neighborhood of $50 million. That would be probably a best case scenario. And this money isn't free money to be used for roads and stuff like that. This is money to be used towards opioid programs, towards diversion. And I don't know how much of that $50 million as it trickles down through the counties, through the state, and then through to the municipalities will be actually coming to the city of Aberdeen. But I can inform the council that this is the kind of litigation that can tear city governments apart if they're dedicating teams to this kind of complex matter. So I would recommend that the council opt in to the national opioid settlement and authorize Joe to sign documents doing that.
So the alternative to that would be, Ron, you would sue J&J and the other manufacturers for us in circuit court. I'll move approval.
Second.
And a motion from Councilman Renee. Was that you, Dave?
We tied. You can give it.
Second to Councilman Rife then. And prior to the meeting, Councilman Rux explained to me that he had once won a class action lawsuit for $3.50. And so we were all kind of expecting that a trickle down might be a little lower than you were. So if we're taking bets, I'm going to say it's not going to be a sizable chunk of $50 million. But anyone else have anything? Any funny comments or anything? Otherwise, Carl, would you give us a roll call vote to accept this approval, please?
Councilmember Rux,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Rife,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Remley,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Mayor Shawneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got the public hearing and possible approval of a special one-day on-sale liquor license on February 26th of 2022 for the Presentation College Denim and Diamonds Ball at the Milwaukee Train Depot, which is at 10 Railroad Avenue Southwest. Anyone here to speak on that, so I would just take a motion.
Move to approve. Second.
The motion from Councilman Remley and a second from Councilman Reinbold. Does anyone have anything to add to that, council or otherwise? This is your chance. This is the public hearing. All right, well then, Carl. Actually, I'm just going to do a voice vote on this one. All in favor, please say aye.
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 And opposed, nay. Motion does carry. We'll move along to our possible approval of the joint cooperation agreement with Northeast Council of Governments, NECOG, for the upcoming year. And to tell us about that is our Finance Director, Carl Alberts. Carl, tell us all about the NECOG agreement.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the agreement that we look at every year with the Northeast Council of Governments for them to provide services to us for different grants and other things that come up during the year that affect municipal government. We share in the total cost of operating Northeast Council of Governments along with other municipalities, counties, and whatnot. I would recommend approval of this agreement.
Move approval.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Rux and a second from Councilman Reinbold. Has anyone got any questions for Carl or statements on this? Before we take the vote, I would like to make mention that I think that NECOG is doing a great job over there and well worth the small amount of money that we contribute each year. With that, I would, all in favor, please say aye.
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 And opposed, nay. Motion does carry. Next, we've got Bob here to tell us a little bit about the possible approval for a professional service agreement with H.R. Green for $98,500 to provide improvements for pretreatment system and reclaimed water system, as well as to elevate the low lift pump station at the water treatment plant. Bob, Ron, what can you tell us about those activities?
This is going to be to renovate the system. The current stuff, reclaim system, has reached the end of its life, and the different sludge pumps need to be replaced. As we increase our water demands, we need to also have more ability to reclaim water from washing filters. So this will repurpose our reclaim base, or our pre-treatment basin, to become part of our reclaim system, and then if we need to, we can resort down to using it as a pre-treatment basin again, and keep the old and have the old system. It has to be, because of the cost and timing, it's going to be probably a 2-year project. We'll get this basin going, and then in the future we'll renovate the former reclaim basin. Also, as our low lifts they're starting to age out, we need to have an idea evaluated, just so we know what's best for future demands, taking water from the river. That way, if something fails before we have planned, we at least know what we need before it's too late, and we have to just do emergency repair.
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Johnson and a second from Councilman Remley. Does anyone have any questions for Bob on this agreement and work? Thank you for presenting here today, Bob. Carl, would you give us a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Ronayne.
Aye.
Remley.
Aye.
Lunsman.
Aye.
Reif.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Reinbold.
Aye.
Langer.
Aye.
Rux.
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we got the possible approval to request to enter a purchase agreement with Mcqueen Emergency Group and prepayment for a Pierce Enforcer heavy-duty rescue pumper for the city's fire department. And Joel Weig, who's our chief, is here to tell us all about that. Joel, welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Like it says, request to enter into purchase agreement with Mcqueen Group and a prepayment for a Pierce Enforcer heavy-duty rescue pumper for the department. This truck is to replace our 1993 Laverne HME pumper. Some of you may remember or not, but this one that we're replacing, back when it was new, was involved in a motor vehicle collision with 2 fire apparatuses, and which is unfortunate for the city. And this happened back in 1993, and ever since then this unit has had maintenance issues because of that, and its age as well. Due to the collision, it's always had a hard time turning to the left, so we have to take that into consideration when we're leaving the station. And it's served the city well. We have to have the equipment tested annually to meet NFPA requirements, and it passed this last time, but without some maintenance work afterwards, and we're looking at it might not pass the next time around. Anyways, we know it's getting to the end of its life. It wasn't scheduled to be replaced until 2024. However, because of the issues that we have, we prioritized it to replace it in 2022. And in order to do that, we're going to hopefully use some, it's been budgeted for 2022, and with the sales tax, special tax, and some COVID relief funds that will make up the difference that we didn't have set aside. So I guess I'm going to request that we enter into a purchase agreement with Mcqueen and do a prepayment. With the prepayment, we're able to save $18,980 if we entered into this prepayment. Effective January 1, according to Mcqueen Group, the cost of the apparatus will go up another 7% on top of the current cost. So you're looking at a significant increase come January 1. Any questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion from Councilman Remley and a second from Councilman Rux. Carl, that's all easy to shuffle around dollars and cents wise in terms of annual budgets. And
So we have the majority of that purchase budgeted for 2022, so should be all included.
When's the delivery
Oh,
expectation?
yes. So as you're aware of, COVID has put a delivery of parts and things that has pushed everything back. The nice thing about Mcqueen Group and Pierce Manufacturing is that they manufacture most of their parts at the plant. And it's a build up from ground level type of apparatus. It's the same manufacturer that built our aerial apparatus, Truck 1, that we purchased in 2018. So normally it'd take less than 12 months to build a truck. Now they're telling us that it's 15 to 18 months. So we won't even see this apparatus until probably 2023.
Any other questions for the chief? Justin?
Same life expectancy of 30 years on the new truck, or
Yeah.
okay.
And it had been around for a while before it was in the accident, or that happened day one?
I had been around for a little while, yeah. That was prior to me being here.
Any other questions for the chief? Otherwise, Carl, give us a roll call vote.
Councilmember Rux,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Reif,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Remley,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Mayor Shonneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we got the possible approval to reject all bids in the purchase of fleet vehicles. Joe, what have you got going on over there?
Yes, this isn't as exciting news as a new fire truck, but as you recall, here in 2021, we started kind of a new process, trying to buy things together, hoping that would get us some better deals. Up front, it looked like that was a good idea. We got a lot of bids. Unfortunately, we opened the bids last year in February, and they were accepted. In May, most of those vehicles were canceled. A couple of them remained. We're still waiting for those. I got word today, amazingly enough, that one is here. The other one they're hoping will come pretty quickly. So based on that lengthy year of waiting on vehicles and having orders canceled, we thought we'd get ahead of the ball game. Again, another great idea that didn't work out. We had 5 different vehicles, types of vehicles. Probably would have purchased about 7 of them. We have received 1 bid for 1 vehicle. So based on that, we recommend rejecting all bids, which was 1. And then we'll kind of regroup as a staff and visit with our vendors a little bit and see if we can come up with something. I think we'll be able to bring these back fairly soon and have some bids.
Move to reject.
Ooh.
Second.
Yeah, you have it.
I've got a motion from Councilman Ronayne, a second from Councilman Johnson to reject those bids. Any questions for the city manager on that? Clint, what have you got?
So, as of course, part of this was police vehicles. And we got the 1 bid for the large SUV and none for the other fleet vehicles that we would normally have. And I'm guessing they're city trucks that if we needed to, we could stretch out another, hopefully a year. I don't want to get to where we don't have floorboards as in previous years in some of our vehicles, but it is one of those things where is going back to the state bid, especially for the police vehicles, still kind of an option. I mean, I would guess that the person who has a state contract is probably still going to order vehicles and probably able to get them to us in a somewhat timely manner. Maybe not.
Nobody right now. You can't order a fleet vehicle until it's sold because they don't make as much money on them. And as a matter of fact, that is the state bid. That's the vendor that has the state bid. That was the only thing that was submitted.
Okay, but like I say, you could contact whoever has it and say, hey, can we get the Ford, police SUV type vehicles, can you order them? Because if we order them off state contract, we don't have to go to bid. We don't have to do anything. We just order off that state contract and order them and get them done, because like I say, I think the other vehicles, but the police vehicles are ones that are heavily used, and I still see, you know, we still have some of the Dodge Chargers out there, and getting the SUVs I think is a little bit better for our police officers to have. So I don't know.
The problem is the manufacturer cut them off.
They cut them off totally?
Law enforcement vehicles, regular vehicles, fleet vehicles, they shut them down at the plant. So they just don't exist. They haven't been built. They're not being built. The next round, in my experience, has been they're telling us we got to wait till June to even put in another bid to hope to get some by September, October of 2022, and you're not guaranteed anything even in 2022.
Okay,
that's right.
Dave, hope you're good with what you got for at least a little while. So with that, I would take a voice vote. All in favor to reject these bids, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion does carry. Next, we've got the possible approval of a change order number 5, the amount of $50,616.94, as well as payment number 5 for $81,921.29 to CWF Masonry and Construction for work on their accessible quadrant improvements. Robin, anything special on that one?
No, it's a balancing change order just to accommodate what things we did do and what things we did not do. As an example, the things we did not do, which was a deduct from the contract, we had the contractor lined up to do the asphalt work in case our crews were not in a position to be able to take care of that. We were able to do all the patchwork alongside these particular quadrants, so that was a change order, deduct change order of $23,000. So the balancing change order just takes care of what we did do and what we didn't do in the field, and this is a final. We were able to do 28 quadrants, which is a good number for us, and we're in the home stretch for getting all our non-compliant quadrants taken care of. Then we'll move into the partially compliant quadrants. It's going to be a never-ending process, but we'll keep working and improve things as we go.
Move to approve.
Which one first?
Second.
All right, so we got a motion from Councilman Reinbold and a second from Councilman Reif. Any questions on those quadrant issues? All right, then, Carl, would you give us a roll call vote to make that change order payment as well as the contract payment?
Councilmember Ronayne?
Aye.
Remley?
Aye.
Lunsman?
Aye.
Reif?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Reinbold?
Aye.
Langer?
Aye.
Rux?
Aye.
Mayor Schoeneman?
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we get the possible approval of change order number 2 in the amount of negative $8,370.35, as well as the payment number 2 in the amount of $80,731.91 to CWF Masonry and Construction for work on street maintenance concrete repair number 2 project. And Robin, what can you tell us about that one?
Kind of the same thing. The contractor worked on the curb and gutter in this particular one was for next year's work, so for the seal coat area for next year. We want to stay ahead of it so that when our guys are going in there, the contractor and our crews are not in fighting for territory in each other's way. So we are slightly below budget. We were over a little bit on the previous project earlier in the spring, so we're trying to manage that money and keep it right at budget for the year. We recommend approval, and this is a final.
Move approval.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Johnson and a second from Councilman Ronayne. Any questions, comments? Carl, roll call vote.
Councilmember Rux?
Aye.
Langer?
Aye, sorry, guys.
Reinbold?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Reif?
Aye.
Lunsman?
Aye.
Remley?
Aye.
Ronayne?
Aye.
Mayor Schoeneman?
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got possible approval of payment number 1 for $107,800 to North Star Logistics LLC for the work on the water treatment disinfectant system improvements. And back to tell us about that is Mr. Bob Braun, the director. Bob, what can you tell us?
Yeah, this is just a partial payment for some of the shop drawings and the preliminary work they've been doing to getting ready to install that disinfection system.
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Remley and a second from Councilman Johnson. Any questions on that work provided to date or the amounts? Otherwise, Carl, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Ronayne?
Aye.
Remley?
Aye.
Lunsman?
Aye.
Reif,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Rux,
Aye.
Mayor Shonneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got update on potential ordinance revisions from our own city manager, Joe Guy. Joe, what can you tell us about those?
Well, I'll start off with this, and I think the last one we'll let the city attorney focus on. I'll give a really fast update. We kind of saved this to a meeting we thought would be kind of short, so we'd give you an update. So we miscalculated that. But every once in a while, we get asked to look at some ordinances, and some of these are going to take some work. So we kind of just wanted to throw them out there, maybe not to get an answer from you tonight, but if you hear something of concern or you want to learn more, maybe reach out to us, and we'll talk about that. But the first one is residential dwellings in I-2 districts. And we've actually found out maybe there's a little bit of that's going on. And some things we think are good, some things we want to control maybe a little bit more in the future. So we'll be looking at something there. That will have to go to the Planning and Zoning Commission first. So we would potentially add some things that are allowed, but it will be very, very tight on how and when that is, and that draft is actually included. The second thing is e-scooters, which we haven't started doing much work on. We've done a little bit, had some discussions. They showed up last year in town. They're kind of a going thing. A lot of, especially bigger cities, you see them. It's something that if we're going to allow them, we need to clean up our ordinances. We need to update our ordinances because our ordinances talk about scooters. They don't really talk about e-scooters at all. They're kind of very different. So we want to look at that a little bit. So those are the two things that we're looking at working on and bringing you. So again, if you have some thoughts on that, let us know. And then Ron has been working very hard, and Brett's been working with him on setting up the medical cannabis. One of the most anticipated things I've ever seen in my career. We get tons of calls on it. So Ron, if you just want to give an update there.
Thanks, Joe. So what I wanted to do was put out to the public the process that we see this application going. For the public to be aware, the city has established a page on its website dealing with medical marijuana establishments. So if you were to click to that, you could find on that page the application form that we have. We are allowing a single application form for any establishment. I know there's been most of the talk has been about the dispensaries, but that one application can be used for any of the 4 different types of cannabis establishments. We anticipate that everything that is going to be provided to the state by an applicant will also need to be provided to the city. So the application makes clear that we're looking at a 2-track process, and I think the applicant should be aware that they're actually dealing with both the state and the city at the same time in order to streamline that and make that go as quickly as possible. We anticipate that we will have to work with the state, and we will work with the state to coordinate the timing of certain verification requirements, because our ordinance has a proviso that in order to get a permit, you first have to have a license. Well, the state says in order to get a license, you first have to have a local permit. And so we're going to coordinate that timing, and I have been working with the director of the medical cannabis program through the Department of Health. So that we understand that all the municipalities are going to be working through this, and we just wanted to make sure that applicants are aware that this is not something that we're going to use as a way to stop working on, but we're going to be working with the state to try to coordinate those and work through those. And then we do anticipate that the process will first go to the city staff for their ultimate recommendation to the council. And so that will be an interdepartmental process where we anticipate planning and zoning will be looking at these, maybe the city finance office, city attorney's office, potentially our police department when it comes to, for example, security plans, looking perhaps at background checks. But we anticipate that review process and working with the applicant to make sure that they've got what they are telling us is a completed application, whether we tell them we don't believe it's complete, but if they're telling us it's what they're going to submit, then at that point we would be looking at formulating our final recommendation and providing that application and our recommendation to the council. We don't anticipate that can reasonably be done earlier than the end of January of 2022. So we might see the first applications coming to this council sometime after in February or March of 2022. I can report as of today, there has not been an application submitted yet. We understand that we will be receiving at least one relatively quickly. But again, the big question has to do with this notion of a lottery. We have 6 dispensary permits that the council has identified that they would be willing to issue. Whether we're going to be in the position like Sioux Falls was, where we have numerous applications well over that allotted amount, I don't know. But when we get to that bridge, we will cross it and we will bring that to the council, and the council will be asked at that point whether it wants to do a lottery type system, or whether it wants to simply approve applications and send it to the state, because the state will do a lottery system if that's the case. So we can deal with that when we get to that. Right now we're not there. So that is how we see that process. I wanted to also point out that on the city website is just a kind of an overview, a summary of the cannabis dispensary application requirements, and it requires an operating procedure. And that operating procedure is much more involved than it sounds. It's a management plan, a site plan, operating days and hours, workplace safety plan, security plan, diversion prevention plan, waste management plan. So there's a lot involved in these. So the idea that somebody's going to roll out of bed in the morning and decide that they're going to open up a dispensary is just not going to happen. This is an expensive process, a time-consuming process, a business process. And we're going to do the best we can to facilitate, to work with applicants, make sure that they're getting their information in, and then bring to the council a solid recommendation as to where we think that should go.
Thank you, Ron. And in your dealings with the state on this issue, would you expect that this will probably, upon the passage of recreational cannabis in the foreseeable future, probably follow the same course of action? Would you anticipate?
I'm going to defer on that, because I don't know whether the medical cannabis legislation allowed for local government involvement. It specifically allowed for that. I don't know that recreational marijuana necessarily will require some kind of local government involvement. And I would hope that if it's legislatively established, that they would recognize that some of these systems are in place, and they would coordinate those systems in any new legislation, but I don't know.
Thank you very much. I think that there's a conception out there within a lot of people that one will kind of lead to the other, and that's not, I guess, the way that I would expect that thing to take place. Let's move along, unless anyone's got any questions on those updates, to the possible license to private residents to hang a holiday banner across 15th Avenue Southeast. And Ron, you're going to field that one as well.
I will. Council members, a letter was submitted by Adam Oshner and Mike Olson, who are residents of the city of Aberdeen, seeking permission from this council to hang a banner in the 2200 block of 15th Avenue Southeast that would go across the street. And we would identify that as an encroachment in the right-of-way, and what this council has done is to establish those encroachments by way of a license. And the license is usually a written agreement, and it potentially can establish either a set period of time when that license would be granted, or provisions for how it terminates. Okay, what has come to the council, and you've all had an opportunity to read the letter, is a request for a holiday banner. So I'm assuming that banner would be up for just the holiday season. But again, we don't have any additional information. All we have is the letter that we provided to you. We don't have a drawing. We don't know what the actual message will be. We don't know what the city engineer is going to have a lot of questions if it gets to that point about just the installation plan, the maintenance plan, the removal plan, how all that would be done. As you know, I've put forth for the council an alternative motion. One would be to deny the license. The other would be to approve the license. It is our recommendation that the council deny the license. However, if the council is inclined to approve a license like this, I need it to be cognizant of those kinds of issues that we have in there, where we need the engineer's approval of the banner, proof of liability insurance, and an indemnification hold harmless type agreement that would also establish the end date of the encroachment. Here's what I will tell the council. I try not to veer into your ambit, which is approval of these as a policy, but I can tell you that once you permit a private type banner, a private type message in a residential area, it's not a downtown Chamber of Commerce kind of message. You do potentially open the door for these kind, and so it is the staff's recommendation that you not grant a license in this instance.
Anyone have any comment on that? Rob, I see you're smiling.
I move to reject.
Second.
I was assuming that you had your own banner rolled up and that you were anticipating for your neighborhood.
And you know, for anyone who wants to do this, you know, I hate being the bah humbug, you know, for a holiday banner, because I mean, you do drive to other communities and they have banners over certain neighborhoods during the holidays and that type of thing, but you know, not knowing what's on the banner or you know how it's going to be fastened, I think to me creates some issues. But I'm never going to be in the future opposed to an idea like this. But boy, we need more information. I'd like to hang a banner, you know. But yeah, like I say, this is just, I think, open. I don't think these people realize what we would be asking them to do either.
Well, the second motion, which would approve the thing, does specify that the engineer's office would approve the banner's design, so you could be sure that it wouldn't be vulgar in nature. I don't think Robin would let that fly.
But when we had the 45-mile-an-hour wind gusts the other day, it'd be tough to engineer something that can withstand that without falling down and hitting stuff. So. Yeah.
All right, any other questions or comments? We've got a motion and a second to deny this. I will have Carl go ahead and give us a roll call vote on the denial.
Councilmember Rux?
Aye.
Langer?
Aye.
Reinbold?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Reif?
Aye.
Lunsman?
Aye.
Remley?
Aye.
Ronayne?
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman?
No. I would like to see that banner. I think our sign
I would like
ordinances
the
are
picture
much
in the-
too strict.
I would like the picture in it so we can see what's going on.
Next, we've got the review and approval of our bills as well as the payroll for the period of November 21st through December 4th, as well as all those things that come along with paying payroll, Social Security, and the like. Can I get a motion to pay all those bills?
Moved.
Second.
The motion from Councilman Johnson, second from Reinbold. Carl, would you give us a roll call vote?
Councilmember Ronayne?
Aye.
Remley?
Aye.
Lunsman?
Aye.
Reif?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Reinbold?
Aye.
Langer?
Aye.
Rux?
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman?
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got our city manager's report, and here to tell us about that is Mr. Joe Guy.
Well, thank you, Mayor. This is always an exciting time. I usually read you a list of folks that hit milestones. Amazingly enough, I only have one. This will be number 38 of 39 names, which preludes you that I will only have one next month as well. But Zach Craigie in the police department hit 5 years, so that's great. I've also brought to you every once in a while something, especially if it's a department head or somebody you interact with. But we had one December 1st. There aren't very many in this realm, but Mark Hoven, the Parks and Rec director, hit 43 years on December 1st. So that was great. Just wanted to share those with you, and that's all I have.
Thank you very much, Joe. Anyone else have anything?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Before we adjourn, I would like to say that I, in all earnesty, do hope that we're able to salvage those home building process up in North Dakota Street, and hopefully we can figure out some way to make that street work happen so that they can take advantage of that discretionary formula, and we aren't having to create any new rules or precedents for those guys that we won't be able to or haven't in the past given to our local developers. With that, we had a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay. Motion does carry. We are adjourned. Thank you all very